Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. You know, I get these email blasts every day, and I get one from Montana News. And what was interesting today, especially because I'm in the podcast business, recorded over 318 podcasts actually today, says the Spreaker download program. But it had the very first recording of Buffalo Bill and some of the things that he had to say out in the frontier. And I was so fascinated to hear his voice from the late 1800s. And then I did a deep dive. Of course, that's what happens when you're on the internet, to start listening to all the earliest recordings. And the first one, which happened in the late 1860s. So pretty fascinating. Sometimes you get distracted and go down a rabbit hole there. Anyways, look, if you listen to my show, you know some of my background. You know that the restaurant business is in my blood. Matter of fact, when I was 13, I started working for my grandfather making sandwiches and hamburgers in Newport Beach, California. He taught me the ropes. He taught me if you had time to lean, you have time to clean. And it all started there. By the time I was 16, I started working for In-N-Out Burger, which I still believe is one of the greatest restaurants in the world, and enjoyed a great career there. And I've had a lot of fascination with restaurants and the success of fast food or quick service restaurants. One of my bigger fascinations, if you know, you know, and that's the Del Taco in Barstow. I don't know about all the other Del Tacos, but the Del Taco in Barstow is legendary. I got to know the owner over there and shared a lot of stories with him. But I got to tell you, in all my travels and all the companies that I've been to and people that I've met, one thing that stuck in my mind from, it was probably the early 90s, was my visit to the Taco Bell Corporation. I remember just being in awe, walking in there. They had this beautiful gym for their employees. It was in Irvine. They had all their restaurants represented in the bottom floor, and you can go eat whatever you want and then go hit the gym afterwards or vice versa. But I was just so impressed with their corporate culture and the importance that they placed on their franchises. And later on in life, again, if you know my story, I worked for the Gallardi Group out of Newport Beach. They own hamburger stands and Wiener Schnitzel's. Had some fun with those guys for about 6 months. But I just love serving people and, the fast food concept. So today, I, did some poking around, and I figured out we had a really successful Taco Bell franchisee here in Montana. And his name is Joe Sample, and he's on the show today. So, Joe, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to sit down with you for a bit.
I know that was a little long-winded intro, but I was looking back this morning at some of my history there. I'm like, wow, I've met a lot of fascinating fast food people, as well as that Taco Bell Corporation. Is that still there, and have you been there?
I have been there. They keep redesigning and whatnot, but it's a pretty spectacular place when you get to sort of bask in the history of a brand that's pretty iconic.
Yeah. Now I teach as an adjunct professor here locally in the school, a couple business classes a week. And we just did a deep dive on marketing, and we went through all the logos and coloration changes of Taco Bell. And what was I've been around for all of them, by the way. And what was fascinating to me in my own memory is that Taco Bell is the first place that I can remember going to as a kid, more so than McDonald's. I don't even remember going to McDonald's, but I distinctly remember Taco Bell because you guys have been so consistent for so long.
Yeah, Taco Bell. I mean, you're a California guy, so you would have been in and around the boom of Taco Bell starting up, and that's still a big chunk of where the stores are today. But yeah, the way that Taco Bell has continued to transition and stay relevant in the sort of 18 to 26-year-old market is truly amazing. And that, it goes with the evolutions of logos and, like, for example, the bong of the bell. I mean, what other brand can you associate with a sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool what they've been able to do.
great marketing teams. And by the way, the first Taco Bell I went to that I do remember distinctly was in Glendora, California. It was one of the old Adobe buildings, and I just remember mom bringing home 6 packs of tacos or however they came back in the day. I think it was in orange paper even. And so, the memory goes back, and I'm sure if you're listening, you're flashing back like, wow, I remember that too. And then lastly, I'll say the first time I ever had a chalupa, because I was a hardcore, just basic taco guy. Late night of drinking the tequila that I was slinging back in the day, and a friend's like, "Oh, we got to get some chalupas," and I will say it was pretty amazing.
They are a top seller to this day. The chalupas, it's a great product. It really is a great product. It's not the healthiest one that you could choose off the menu, but maybe that's why it's so sought after. But yeah, it's a great one.
That's right. Well, look, that's enough of my memory lane and some of these Taco Bell idiosyncrasies. What I'd love to hear, this year I've had I'd say last year now, I've had a lot of great guests on that are bringing value to aspiring entrepreneurs, people that want to make a transition or change. And you're in the franchise business. And we know that Taco Bell is a franchise operation, and there's a lot of opportunities there. I would love for you to tell your story. Go back to whenever it's relevant, when you got your start in business, whether that's Taco Bell or something else, or it just was your college education that spurred this on. But tell us some of your story, and then eventually how you got into owning Taco Bells.
Yeah, building off that change part, and then I'll get right back to that. I really think that we have an amazing opportunity being on sort of the front line of change, if you will. And I know we'll talk a little bit about charitable giving and other things that we're into, but the group, the teams that we get to work with, it's an amazing opportunity to, volunteer, to help save for retirement, to develop these habits that will, give them a springboard to success in other places. So we'll talk about that more, but I really do find a lot of meaning in our work. But anyway, how we got in. So it was a family business. My mom married a guy that had one Taco Bell. And so I grew up and I was pulling weeds and over time mowing lawns. I had D&J lawn service with my buddy Darren. And so we mowed all of our Taco Bells locally. And then as we got a little bit more mature, I suppose, they would allow us to paint the buildings. So I'd paint the buildings. I never actually worked in the stores until actually it was in 2001, and I was studying abroad, which I would highly recommend to anybody out there that's going to college and considering it. And my mom came over and she was diagnosed with a terminal illness. So she had Lou Gehrig's disease, or what's commonly known as ALS. Think back to the Ice Bucket Challenge. And she said, to my sister and I, which of you, does either one of you want to do this? Because if you don't, then I want out. This isn't how I want to spend the remaining time in my life. And I said yes. And my sister said that she wasn't interested. She had a budding career at the big accounting firms and consulting and whatnot. But this was sort of up my alley. I didn't think that this would be how I would move down a leadership path. So I said yes. And then upon graduation, I moved back to Montana and started working in the stores right at 22. And I became an area coach, which quickly led me to becoming a general manager, because our cupboard was pretty bare from a talent standpoint. And so over the years, I've run 3 or 4 of the restaurants, and my mom ultimately passed in 2006, and I've been president of the company since 2005. And we now have 12 stores in Western Montana. We just opened a very exciting, newer concept for Taco Bell, and that's called the Taco Bell Cantina restaurant. And we're the only one within about 1,000 miles of us. So it's pretty exciting for us, and it's been a heck of a journey. It's been a big journey.
Well, I'm not surprised that you were an entrepreneur before you took on the task of running Taco Bells, mowing lawns and painting buildings, because most of my guests that have had entrepreneurial success did something at a young age, and understanding what it takes to get some hard work in there. What were some of your initial challenges transitioning out of, what was effectively your own business into the Taco Bell culture?
Transitioning out of Taco Bell, or I'm sorry, what do you mean? Is it the melding between the brand and the franchisee or franchisee?
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm just thinking at a young age, you've got your buddies and you're mowing lawns. That's kind of the cool thing to do. You've got your own business. All of a sudden you're like, hey, you're all in on this Taco Bell thing. Like, what were some of the things that you went through? Because look, we got a lot of young listeners here, and they're trying to find their way. And I want people to understand that there's so many opportunities around every corner, even if it's your local Taco Bell.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah, it was a really challenging journey. So as I transitioned out of college and all my friends go to metropolitan areas working these corporate jobs, and my world was not like that at all. I moved home, and I'm working an insane number of hours and dry, the distances in Montana. And so it's like 2 hours there and 2 hours back. And then as my mom sort of progressed, I would have to, you can't, you eventually with ALS, you can't move. So at night I would come back and I would turn her over at 2 and 4 in the morning. And then I'm back out on the road the next day. And so I would say that it was, it was just growing up really fast. And I think we underestimate what we're capable of. And I'm assuming that probably stays with us for a long period of time. Even as we mature and as we experience these things, I continue to believe that we still underestimate what we're capable of. And that time definitely taught me a lot about what I was capable of. And the amazing part is that you're so naive going into it. I didn't know. I didn't have a clue as to how much work it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was a heck of a journey. Still on it.
Yeah, you're still on it. Yeah, full on. You're opening new stores. So a good friend of mine, his parents started the UPS franchise stores, and similar to you, his parents weren't sick, but they were done. And they said, hey, look, we want to hand this down. And at the time, the franchises they oversaw at the time, really tapered down. And he came to me, he's like, Jim, what do I do here? I'm not sure. He owned a store, but he's like, I'm not sure I want to do all this. Like, I got a lot of big plans in life. What made you say to your mom yes at the time that your sister was saying no? I mean, what was it? Compassion for her situation, or did you think, there might be something here to this?
Yeah, it's interesting. So a couple of things, my relationship as I left for college wasn't the best with my mom. And so it was a strange place to be going, sort of removed from home while she's dealing with this illness. And yes, that was definitely a factor in terms of, why I said yes. The other one was, it was just sort of in my wheelhouse. I always thought, maybe a CEO of a large corporation or something like that. I started a club at Georgia called the University of Georgia Investment Club, which also sort of dovetailed with this small business managerial leadership training component that I would lead. And so it was just sort of always like, it was just there. I felt confident that I could step into something and be successful. I never in a million years thought it was going to be in the QSR industry. And I'm very fortunate, with where the brand was at the time. Emil Brolick, who was very high up at Wendy's, comes into Taco Bell at a difficult time. It was a difficult time when I came in, and that was sort of the years leading into my mom's stress. It was very challenging. Anyway, Emil Brolick, and then if you go extend from Emil all the way through to where we are today, we've had a series of just amazing leaders who have been such great brand stewards. I feel very fortunate that, I don't know if you knew this, but Taco Bell just got franchise of the year for the third year in a row out of all franchise concepts. That's over 1,000 concepts, and Taco Bell's won it for the third year in a row. So
Pretty amazing.
it's amazing. So I've had a front seat to this, to how great brands are run, how I integrate with that. And it's just, yeah, it's been fantastic. And then it's an important point, and I want to make it, and that is that when I came back, lived at home, my mom and I just had we were stuck together. There was no
Mm-hmm.
other choice. And we would get into it, and then at the same time, it's like I turn around, I'm taking care of her at home. And, when she ultimately passed in 2006, I was by her side, and our relationship was rock solid. And I was so thankful that I had that opportunity to really take that to another level.
I appreciate you sharing that story. I lost my dad years ago now. Similar situation, although I didn't take over his business. I helped my brother take it over and transition. It was a sign business out in Lake Havasu. It's very, very difficult. I keep going back to in my mind, you bringing up the hours traveled on the road from store to store at a young age. And the reason why it comes to mind is oftentimes people have a tendency to look at the finished product, right? So right now, the finished product, if you go to your website, successful company, Golden Bell Awards, all these great things, people tend to forget the hard work, sweat, effort that went into this thing just to get it where it's at. Regardless if one was handed off to you or a couple stores were handed off to you, it was your job to keep it going. Can you talk about some of those formative years about really growing that business and the hours that you put in and maybe some of the turmoil?
Yeah, there was a store that we had in Kalispell. We have another store there now, but we have our older store in Kalispell, which is still currently under remodel. But anyway, that was the only store at the time, and it was 2.5 hours from home base, and it struggled for forever, and it was so bad. I remember as I go into that town, I would park on this bench near Summers, overlooking Flathead Lake. And I would just sit there to gather myself. And I am I'm a very energetic guy. Like I don't get, my feathers don't get ruffled. But I knew that in order to go in there and make a difference, I had to bring energy that the place was void of. I remember going there, and I'm working next to a general manager who's on their second day, an assistant manager who's on their first day, and the national corporate audit comes in. Of course, we failed it. And from an hours standpoint, oh my gosh, I don't know, 70, 80 hours was probably where I topped out at.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom, she was so funny. She insisted that I go back and take this accounting course. And she was an accountant by trade. And I'm like, Mom, I just graduated with a finance degree from, University of Georgia, which is a great school. And I don't need anyway. So I'm working all these hours. I'm helping her out, living at home, and taking night accounting classes. It was insane. She ultimately agreed that was not a good use of my time, but I still finished the class. I still remember the professor, and I see him from time to time, and he remembers me. It's anyway, but yeah, it was just like that, and no general manager, and they need you, and trust me, when you're being called in as the area coach or a director of operations at the time to run the store, that means it's in a really bad place.
Yeah.
And that happened to me numerous times. It was just a constant sort of really a 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And then, you just learn as you go. You learn about how to develop people. You learn about how to retain people. You learn about having these conversations of accountability early and frankly. And you learn about creating, great cultures, and you just keep getting better. But the key in all that is that you have to be willing to pour into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can learn things through experience, but talking to other people, reading books, going, one of the things that we did that a lot of franchisees don't do is we go and visit top performers. I take a whole group of people, we go visit top performers, and we try and dig in and understand. And it's been good.
Yeah. Well, your success certainly shows in some of your accolades you received from Taco Bell. Since becoming the president and growing this company and really evolving your business, what does that look like in the future for you? And have you enjoyed that part of the process? Is it as rewarding as the grind that you were in before?
Yeah. It's interesting in, the journey of our development. And it's really difficult to understand that when you're in this trough, when you're in a grind, that's where all the growth is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's been, it had, leading up to the pandemic, it had been much smoother, much cleaner, great people I've, gotten to know and built relationships with over years and years of time spent together. And that was, it's a different phase of the journey for sure. But it's also an important phase, and that is where, you're not letting off the gas. You can still get better. And that's an important message, not being sort of content with where things are at. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and then things became not easy in a hurry.
Yeah.
Yes, we were fortunate to have a drive-through, but the strain it put on, my whole system, the people, it really impacted us. We made some changes. We turned some people over. Some people left. So I'm actually feeling like right now I'm in this really cool spot where I feel like I'm kind of starting anew,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to see how fast we can get back to where we were. And
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty darn fast. Our ability to select people, to develop people, to retain people, to drive operations through process excellence, like we have that really well dialed. And I'm just so excited to see how fast we can bring all these people along with us. And that's a big opportunity. In terms of what's next, that is an interesting question. I care about that for many different reasons, but one of them is because I want to have a place where our people can continue to grow. And there's a mistake in that thinking, for most people, and that is that if it's not some big size, I can't continue to grow. And that's not really true. There's so many different opportunities within even our current structure. And I think some would say that we're larger size with 12 stores, but from a lot of the people I talk to, that's a smaller company. But anyway, so that drives some of my interest in expanding and doing something, different. My Taco Bell footprint is largely taken up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few locations that we could go to, but the current economics just don't make sense. So then the question is, what next? And I work on that behind the scenes right now, because our 100% focus is on the Taco Bell brand, but there will be a next. I'm not sure what it is. I keep my eyes open all the time looking for, great concepts or new concepts. I don't think it'll be a franchise concept. I feel like we've taken those lessons. We've learned the things. I don't think we need to go and jump on another brand. Besides, I don't know if what the other brand would be. I feel like I've enjoyed the Taco Bell brand so much that I think we'll go outside of it. But I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. Another chapter.
A true entrepreneur. Always one eye open in the middle of the night. What's next?
Yeah. I think it's exciting. I think, you're never, I love the story of the Colonel, right? So he started KFC like when he was 62 or 63.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what's possible? There's so much that's possible. We limit ourselves by our thinking so much. And I just want to keep thinking what's possible. And it's not because I need more, have to have more. It's not about that at all. It's just about the experience, the growth, the opportunity. So, yeah.
I love that you brought that up, because, I have got a lot of people on the show. We hear a lot of different perspectives, but in my mind, if you're in your late 50s or 60s and you want to start something, you've got all the experience behind you. there's no reason why you can't jump onto something else, and take everything with you. So I love that you're looking. I interviewed my brother, who was the CEO for In-N-Out Burger, worked there for 35 years. Episode 13 and 14, by the way, for paying attention. But what was interesting about our interview, I learned something from him that I never knew about him. And I said, Mark, what was your favorite part of your career to date? And he says, Jim, it was about working in the stores. He goes, I miss being a manager. I said, really? Why is that? He says, because I had the team around me. We had goals. We walked into our shift with goals. We're going to sell this many hamburgers and we're going to keep the place clean and we're make customers happy. He goes, I miss that. We were able to rally. It was like a football team, right? And I'm listening to you and I'm thinking that probably resonates with you as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's something about, putting yourself back on the field, and when you're removed from the actual day-to-day operations, it's a different mindset. It's not the same. The results aren't seen as quick, and you can't, just fire up people. I recently heard Kirby Smart, leading this pep talk. I think it was at a halftime. He's the University of Georgia football coach, and just firing up his team. That doesn't happen when it's like you're removed and in the corporate office.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't work like that. System and process improvement, infrastructure building, strategy, tactics. It doesn't have that same sort of electric energy. And then the other thing that's different is that the impact, for that you're working with these team members, with shift managers, they're just starting what could be a possible direction for them. The impact you can have is just really cool, and it can be pretty immediate. You'd be surprised if you just insert yourself into people's stories, into their lives, and understand them. You can point them in the right direction in a pretty short order, and it can make a big difference.
Sure.
So, and they also just seem more receptive to it, so it's like, there's just all these different pieces that make that such a special place.
So, let's look at some value for our listeners. Let's say we've got that listener that's saved a pocket full of money and they're looking for their next step and they're thinking, wow, I wouldn't mind owning a franchise. What are some of the upsides and maybe some of the downsides of making that move? Because, we're post-pandemic, as you discussed, that was a tough time. And some people lost their businesses, whether that's in the restaurant industry or they're just looking for a change to do something different. So what's your thoughts on looking into Taco Bell franchising?
Yeah, looking into Taco Bell or franchising in general, just going that path versus like
you can go both. Yeah, do both. Why not?
Okay. So franchising is a cool path, right? So there are things that are defined for you that you don't have to create. My wife and I talk about, are you a 0 to 1 person or are you a 1 to 100 person?
Mm-hmm.
If you're more in the 1 to 100, like you need something that's started, they've already kind of figured out how the kitchen lays out or how the business in general works, but you like the idea of taking that concept and taking it up to 100, scaling it, then that's more in your wheelhouse. Then franchising is good. If you are, all of these concepts, what's key to know about them is that you are two things. One, you are a people developer. And you are a system and process executor. Mm-hmm. So if you are interested in both of those things, then this is a good place for you. You can grow in your business acumen, you can grow in your leadership acumen, but you really need to be able to answer those two questions: that do I love developing people, and how do I feel about system and process execution? Because that's what you're buying from the franchise. You're buying process and a brand. You buy their marketing. So you kind of, if you're really into the creative side of it, it's not the same if you're getting into a franchise. So much is on the creative level is done by other people. And then of course, if you're getting into franchises, I've been blessed with Taco Bell. You're going to want to know what that franchise or franchisee relationship is like. That to me would be huge. Taco Bell is blessed to have a wonderful relationship there. And it's not that it hasn't had its bumps in the road, and it continues to get nurtured and talked about, but that's a critical component. Taco Bell is a very difficult brand to get into now.
Mm.
I mean, third year in a row of the best franchise concept in America has a lot of interest from big money, and so it's just very difficult to get into the brand. I think it would be an individual that didn't have a very strong background or a relationship with an existing owner that they could then work on. That would be the key. So if you wanted to get into Taco Bell ownership right now, you would want to find an owner that needed a number two. You could be that person. Hopefully you're bringing some skills to the table, because otherwise you won't be the number two. And then if you could, help them transition out of their role, maybe you could carve a store out or two stores out. I know a recent director of operations out of Arizona that has just done that, and I'm thrilled for him. I mean, that really is very exciting opportunity for people to go and then own your own concept, but not only own your own concept, but feel like you have all the skills and tools necessary to go succeed there because you've done it. So that's where we get back to that working part, right? Like, if you want to get into it, go work in the brand.
Yeah.
Go become great at that brand, and then it's just like, go find it. Go find the franchisees that are in that space, demonstrate that you are going to add an enormous amount of value to them and that they'd be fools for not hiring you. And then, be explicit around your interest in eventually, owning something. Maybe it's one store, whatever it may be.
Great, solid advice. Often overlooked, by the way, especially sometimes when you look at outside big money coming in, they just, they see this is the number one franchise, they buy a bunch and then they fail because they don't have that connected interest. They didn't do their real research if it resonated with them or if it was a good fit or not. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to Joe's advice, if you're that personality where you don't want to do what corporate's asking you to do, my uncle started, it was actually my dad's uncle, pizza factory, and their logos, we toss them, they're awesome. And Danny was a realtor that retired, and he thought, I love Yosemite, so I'm going to open a pizza place there. I don't know how to make pizza. So he went and got a job at a local pizza place, his favorite. It was called Red Devil Pizza. This is, by the way, the late 70s. And for 6 months, he learned how to make pizza. Then he went up to Oakhurst, California by Yosemite, started Pizza Factory. Next thing you know, he's got several hundred of them with a great concept. So there's a person that started something because he wanted to be creative, and it worked out because he didn't want to be told how to run it. So there's so many opportunities and growth within this industry. But I think what you said, Joe, is, see your fit and understand that business. Go work for those people, right? Really get an idea if it's a good thing for you or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because you have to appreciate the commitment you're making, right? Starting any business, going into franchising. I mean, franchising especially, because you're literally signing a commitment for 20 years, 25 years. It's not something you want to take lightly. So yeah, go make sure that you're passionate about being able to do the frontline job, and that you could spend a lot of time doing that. And if that answer is yes, then fantastic. And then on the creative side, if you're if you're the 0 to 1, I mean, that's so cool too. My wife's the 0 to 1, and it's so, like, there's just so much energy and excitement. It's frenetic. It's you have a complete autonomy. It's like, how are we going to market? How are we going to build it? What's going to look like? Where's this chair going to go? What, everything, all those decisions to make that, if you're a 1 to 100, you'd rather not.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I've got 2 more questions for you, both good ones, in my opinion. the first one is, again, going through your website, and you're a relatively small franchise organization as it compares to some of the bigger ones, but you've managed to keep a few key people there for a really long time. Do you want to mention their names and what they brought to the table? Because I know they're on your website and you can look them up. But I'm just fascinated when I look at small companies that have kept people around for years and years and years.
Yeah. Sure. Well, our director of operations, her name is Peggy Holsey, and we met while my mom was still around, and an individual franchisee out of Washington knew that Peggy was unhappy in her Taco Bell experience in Washington, and he was helping consult with us at the time, kind of helping to bring me up. He was a great people developer. He is a great people developer. His name's Paul Moffat. Anyway, so I go to Washington to interview Peggy. And what's funny about that experience is I actually lost my front tooth in the middle of our interview.
Oh no.
So I'm just kind of like hiding my mouth a little bit. And Peggy's like, thinks this is an interesting opportunity.
Sure.
It's for a general manager. So it's a lateral transfer for her. With the idea that, we are looking for area coaches, but, we'd like to work with you first. And so her whole family, she's like, what do you guys think of this? Just packing up and moving to Montana.
Yeah.
And to her amazement, they were all like, yes, let's do it. and she's like, what? Okay. So they all pack up, move to Montana. She takes over one of our Missoula locations, and I mean, really, the rest is history, because it's been such a wonderful journey. The growth that Peggy has had, continues to have, is amazing. One of her special qualities is her just huge heart for people. I mean, it overflows, and now she's combining it with this accountability piece, which is not in any way mean or anything. It's one of the two. It also comes from that place of a huge heart. And so that's just allowed her to thrive. And she loves people development. She loves recognizing people. So she's wonderful, and she's been with us for a very long time. I mean, we have general managers. It's difficult to, highlight any one individual, but we have a general manager. I'm
gonna put you in a corner, so we'll pull you back out of the corner. We'll leave it with Peggy, but look, take the time to look into the team over there if you feel like it. And I guess I just want to give you accolades, Joe, because I can see from your website that you've remained consistent in your loyalty from your team members, and that says a lot about who you are and how you run a company. So I'll throw the last question out at you, and I think it's a fun one. We talked briefly before we got on air about running Spartan races and being healthy in marathons and all that stuff. What I want to know is, what do you eat on the menu at Taco Bell that fits within a runner's diet? Because I'm going to use it.
All right. So I like to bounce around in the menu, but I do have a few staples. And one is the steak quesadilla. So I love the steak quesadilla, and I get it with a side of sour cream. One of the cult classics that I also like is the cheesy gordita crunch.
Okay.
These are not the runners, the runners menu items. And besides, I said I was a recovering runner. Yeah, gosh, those days. But I would say those are my two favorites. And that's actually one of my favorite conversations to have with consumers is, I find that they order the same thing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I love getting them to branch out on the menu, because there's just so many different things that Taco Bell can offer that if you just try them, you'll love it. I promise.
Oh, I'm sure. I used to make a game out of it when Taco Bell was going through a lot of changes, adding a lot of different stuff to the menus. Like, I got to go in and try the new thing, whatever it is. And for me, it was just added calories for the day. I've always been pretty much a runner. So, look, Joe, I want to thank you for your time and sharing your experience and your story and your success with us, because I just think it's fascinating. We drive by Taco Bell's probably every single day, and we don't think about the story behind that, as well as all those other great businesses. And I appreciate you sharing it and being transparent about your mom and how this thing all transpired for you. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, if you've enjoyed the show, I appreciate you sharing it, and thanks for listening. We're going to have a lot of more guests on here, and I'm going to try to get more people from Montana. You can learn a little bit more about our culture up here in Montana. So thanks for tuning in to The Answer is Yes.
It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on The Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories.
As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.